plants that only they can pollinate, and only they have the right kind of beaks to get in there to get the pollen. Now, if that plant were to die, that bird were to die, would die also.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yes. And I feel that life on Earth is the planet's life. It's not,
so that plant,
you know, gods or governments. The planet.
So the planet created itself.
Yes.
It's alive?
Out of matter and time and space.
Okay,
and
yeah, well, I know that's an evolutionary viewpoint, but of course we disagree, and we present other evidence that you don't usually get, like on TV, on PBS, or in
History Channel, Discovery Channel.
And, you know, we've shown lots of distortions of truth. Like last week we were talking, or 2 weeks ago we were talking about the Piltdown Man and Nebraska Man and the hoaxes that they were, and how they
yeah, there were some hoaxes. There was a guy back in the 20s that filed down some teeth, and he found a skull that...
Yeah, but this stuff is typical. It goes on all the time. And so, you know, let's go back a minute, though, to the blind people that were... So if Jesus really healed them, and they saw them really healed, then Jesus was a pretty special human. It wasn't just that the cells...
He might have healed them by letting them know that you don't need eyes to see. If you were born without eyes, you wouldn't be blind, because you would have no, you would have missed nothing.
No, they could see. They could now see you now. You know, how many fingers am I holding up? 3. How many fingers am I holding up? None. They could see. It wasn't like they were imagining anything, right?
A bat is blind, and they can see exactly how many fingers you're holding up.
Well, they use radar or something to that effect, right?
Sonar.
Okay, a sonar.
Sound.
Okay.
Which blind humans don't have.
Yes, we do. Sometime in a dark room in your house, close your eyes, and just go let out like and you can hear the walls get closer to you. Unless you're deaf, I mean, or part deaf.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, but we don't fly at 100 miles an hour either.
Bats don't fly at 100 miles an hour.
Well, Barrett, I'd like you to do an experiment for us, because it sounds like you're into science.
Oh, yeah.
Get a couple of people, and bring them into the studio when their sonar's really working, and we'll test it. I have a feeling you're not going to show up with these sonar testes.
It'd be a good comedy show.
Well, you're saying you can't do it. So, I mean, it's silly.
Well, you could do it.
It's fantasy.
I don't know. Well, we all have our opinions, but you know...
See, that's why we do this program, is to show the evidence that Jesus was a supernatural being. It's said in the Old Testament 700 years before he came that he was going to do all these miracles, that the lame would walk and the blind would see. And so when John the Baptist, had been in prison, was doubting, because he knew he was going to be killed, was doubting, is this really the Messiah, this one Jesus who I felt was the Messiah? And he sent messengers to Jesus to ask him. Jesus said, yeah, go back and tell him that the blind see and the lame walk. Indicating, yeah, I'm that one in Isaiah chapter 35, just like I'm the one in Isaiah chapter 53. I am that one. And no other human being that I've ever heard of that it has ever been written in history.
Okay,
Wait. So we point out he's historical. No other human being that I've ever heard about was able to heal all these blind people and deaf people in city after city and raise the dead, right?
There's God, and then there's Christ or Jesus or whatever, and then there's man. So what's man's role in this trinity or hierarchy or whatever people might perceive it to be?
Can you give it to him quickly, and then if he wants a deeper...
Yeah.
And I'll take this off the air in case other folks are trying to call in.
Okay, thanks, Barrett. We do have 2 lines, though.
And you guys have a good day.
Thanks.
Take care, Barrett.
Yeah. Basically, what is man created for? Why are we here?
Well, he said, where do we fit in the scheme of things of God, the Son, and man, I guess. That's what I remember him saying.
Well, we are created in his image, and we are created to have a relationship, and we are created to worship that creator.
Have a relationship with him.
Yes, ultimately.
And as a creator, it seems, in his view, it's right that we should hold him in a certain regard since he made us.
Yes.
And he holds the universe together. It's kind of an amazing thing.
We need to acknowledge the one who created us. Just acknowledge that.
Right.
And submit to that authority.
Right.
And being he's holy and just and wrote the commandments, which, again, Mike, the evidence through the prophets prophesied over 1,000 years of 1,500, 2,000 year period to explain to us this law that he wrote.
Now, what's the purpose of Jesus? Why did he have to come?
To pay the penalty for the sin that we carried and were born into. We were born into the penalty of sin.
I'm just saying that
and
for the
he
benefit
came to
of
pay for
others.
that penalty of sin.
Right. Now, would you guys agree, those of you watching, that that's, you could call it sin, you could call it evil doing? Isn't that the major problem? Einstein said that the major problems of mankind are moral problems, and science.
And Barrett spoke about the morality of man, and if the morality would be good if we followed those 10 commandments.
Right, but so that sin or moral problems are that's why people go to war, that's why marriages break up over moral problems.
You know, it's interesting.
Not being able to lying to each other, doing things that the other one felt is not right. That's why they usually break up. Of course, they can break up for selfish reasons. I just don't like the way you look anymore, or whatever. But
you know, the conversation that you were having with Barrett about Jesus, and all happening on this weekend, this as they call it, Easter weekend.
Ishtar, you said, yes.
Yeah. Good Friday, resurrection, celebrated all around the world. You throw that in with Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Jesus. Is that a coinky-dink? Who made that up?
Well, these people died. We were talking about them. They were put to death under the Roman government, and of course, as you know, Christianity spread, so it wasn't made up. It was, you know, it spread. But they would say,
simple evidence,
as a non-believer, I would have said that, well, there's lots of religions around, and what makes that one any better than the other one? We get that question a lot. Of course, it's fulfilled prophecy. And Jesus is raising the dead and the blind that no one, again, there's no historical record of anybody else that's a valid, even with people who are against him testifying to him doing supernatural things according to what the people around him said and saw. So we don't have any of that except for this one Jesus. So,
you know, Mike, and to maybe draw a different picture, we believe everything that George Washington did because of the historical account of those writers who wrote about him, his own accounts.
Well, the major things, yeah, okay.
But we won't believe in this Jesus person who was written about, and not only written about, Mike, he was prophesied about.
Right.
And so that's even greater evidence than George Washington. So we'll believe George Washington with no prophecy given, but we won't believe in Jesus with prophecy given.
Because, as we've spoken many times, we don't want to give up our sin habits, or we don't want to give up peer status. And Jesus spoke about both of those things, John 5:44 for the peer thing, and John 3:18 for the sin. And he said those are the main things that keep people from him and will keep people from him, because that's going to be more important than the truth. That people just don't have that much love of the truth where they're willing to appear weird to their contemporaries or to give up habit patterns. But he says, I'm going to help you do that. All you have to do is be willing and say, I'm going to follow you now and do it, and he will transform you. And we've met so many people. I didn't know you till I came to Oregon, and so many other Christians that have the same testimony. You come from a Catholic background. You were born in Minnesota. I'm a New York guy. But, you know, it could be people from India or people from Kenya or wherever. The same testimony is that Christ has changed our lives, and we've seen incredible things, some of us, and most of us. And not only that, you know, it's just, it's the evidence that's given here that if you look at it, such as what the blind children from birth in those towns, how do you get around that? What would make people die and lie unless it was true?